Today's guest's resume runs all the way back to his days playing junior hockey in the KIJHL, calling games in the BCHL before stepping in to do play-by-play for the Abbotsford Heat. More recently, he became a local legend by calling the Abbotsford Canucks Calder Cup run. We are very happy to welcome Brandon Astle to the show. How's it going, brother?
Russell, I'm doing well. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Yeah, it's good to have you. It's good to have you. Every time I bring someone onto the show, brand new, we always do the same set of questions. We always got to get your allegiances, see out where you're laying when it comes to your hockey fandom. So we'll start off with, I think, probably the easiest question of the bunch. What's your favorite hockey team?
Starting off with the softball, that is the Vancouver Canucks. Have been a fan since, boy, the early 90s, when I was still in diapers. And admit I don't have the best memory, but I remember the 94 Cup run like it was yesterday. And the jubilation of winning Game 6 of the Coliseum to then heartbreak in Game 7 at the Garden. And I guess the reason I probably got into it all was Pavel Bure, like many kids my age, and obviously him being one of the best players in franchise history, kind of captivated an entire fan base and took it to another level. So, yeah, diehard Vancouver Canucks fan. If Abbotsford's not playing, I don't miss a game.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I kind of figured as much. A lot of the time, that's what happens. But is there a specific moment in Canucks history like a favorite moment in Canucks history?
Off the top of my head, obviously, 2011 was awesome. I mean, I just remember the fan support and people from the entire province rallying behind the Canucks. And as we know, the team was hated, especially from other fan bases in Canada. And Canucks fans kind of embraced that mentality. The best team in the league, President's Trophy, and all that had some characters that were not well liked from Burrows and Bieksa and Torres and those types. And obviously, still will never get over the Game 7 loss to the Bruins. But just that entire run, like I remember Burrows' OT winner in the Cup final at home, the little wraparound behind the net, stuffing it past Thomas, and the crowd reaction on the streets, and seeing the fans inside Rogers Arena is the moment that I'll never forget. And a sneaky one that I honestly doesn't think gets enough play. I guess it's about 7 years ago now, and it wasn't a playoff game. It was at the end of the day a mean nothing regular season game, and it was the Sedin's last home game against the Arizona Coyotes. Daniel Sedin gets the overtime winner, set up by his brother. Alex Edler was out there. Edler was in front of the net providing a screen. Bo Horvat was out there as well, if I remember, but it was Edler who was screening the goaltender when Daniel slapped it home. And I still get chills thinking about it. Obviously, two legends in Canucks history who kind of just dropped a bomb on the fans not too long before that game, saying that they're going to retire. They didn't want the fanfare, but I remember throughout that game, they were getting ovations left, right, and center. They were saluting the crowd. And when Daniel put that one home, I'll never forget where I was. That was a really emotional moment. So that's just a couple off the top of my head.
Do you have a favorite Canuck player of all time, like over the years?
I mentioned Pavel Bure. I'm probably not where I am right now without him and
Mm-hmm.
the show that he put on in the early 90s. Um, Matt Cook was one of my favorite players. I know he didn't end his career on the best of terms with hockey fans, but back in his Vancouver days, he didn't turn into that type of person yet. And just really like the way he played the game and had some memorable moments, tying it up against the Minnesota Wild in the playoffs, and then Calgary Flames in Game 7. Unfortunately, they didn't win that, but he was out there with the goaltender pole to put it in. Had one of his jerseys growing up with his autograph on the back. And I actually saw him for the first time ever at the Abbotsford Canucks celebration. He was there representing the alumni. And I stopped dead in my tracks. I'm like, holy smokes, that's Matt Cook. Should I say something? He's like 10 feet in front of me, but I didn't do it. I didn't know what I could say. So that was a kind of a wow moment. Just kind of took my breath away. I saw Matt Cook and stopped me dead in my tracks. So he's definitely one. I mentioned the Sedins. They're a couple of my favorite athletes of all time. Um, Coming up in their rookie season and years after that, took a beating from people, especially fans outside of the Vancouver market. I was standing up for those guys left, right, and center, and was very happy to see them evolve into the superstars and Hall of Famers that they became to be. And then a big fan of the West Coast Express,
Mm-hmm.
Naslin, Bertuzzi. I really love Brendan Morrison's game. I kind of modeled myself after him,
Mhm.
and was able to interview him a few times when he retired. So that was pretty neat. But yeah, the list goes on and on. But I say that at the top of the charts is probably Bure, Cook, and the Sedins.
That's not a bad list. So I did mention off the top, obviously, and you've mentioned it yourself, you played hockey growing up through I think you were playing at a junior B level, was it junior A, something like that?
Yeah, I played Junior B in the KIJHL.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite moment as a hockey player?
I have a couple. Maybe I'll take you through a couple of avenues just quickly here. The first avenue is minor hockey.
Mhm.
There was an international Pee Wee tournament. I was playing for the Poco Pirates Pee Wee AAA team. We went up to Vernon. It was a pretty big tournament at the time. In the round robin, we got smoked by a team from Barrie, Ontario, 12-1. It was like playing against a bunch of men, very demoralizing. But we kind of used it as a rallying cry, and then ended up getting to the finals and faced them there. And obviously, we were a huge underdog and ended up beating them 4-3 in double overtime.
Ooh.
So that was just a moment that I'll never forget. One of my good buddies, Curtis Dixon, scored the OT winner after Zach Hamill, who played for the Boston Bruins. He kicked it to him. He had two guys draped all over him behind the net. He kicked it to Dixon, and he snapped it home. So that's my favorite minor hockey memory. High school hockey, in my grade 11 year, it was still kind of new into our high school at least.
Mhm.
And our team was very good. We ran the table, we're undefeated, went to the finals and lost in the championship game. So felt bad for the seniors that didn't have a chance to get revenge in grade 12. And let me tell you, Russell, we came back the next year. We didn't go undefeated in the regular season, but we got our revenge in the finals and went out on top as winners. I had 4 goals in the championship game. That is my signature performance throughout my entire playing career. And then in junior with the Crescent Valley Thundercats,
Yeah.
we were against the backs against the wall going into game 6 in Kimberley. I tied the game with a goaltender pulled to force overtime, and then I set up the OT winner so to force game 7 the next night back in our barn. And so we jumped right back on the bus, got back to Creston, few hours sleep, right back to the rink, and played a game 7. And at the time, the Thundercats never got past the first round of franchise history. And we went into triple overtime at game 7. And that was just wild to be a part of. And we ended up getting the job done. We won. So I'll never forget the city's reaction and just how joyful everybody was. Unfortunately, we got swept in the next round, but I can say my last junior win was in triple overtime of a game 7.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of people can say they've played in overtime at any level.
You're telling me, and I know my friends, I tell my friends every single time there's an overtime game in the National Hockey League playoffs, I say, I bet this doesn't go into triple OT, and it never does.
Well, I was going to ask you a little bit about that because in the 06-0 season in the KIJHL, you had 11 goals and no assists for the Beaver Valley Nighthawks in 9 games. Then you got traded to Crescent Valley, like you said, and you had, I think, 7 goals, 8 assists in 11 games. So why were you such a puck hog when you were playing in Beaver Valley, and what changed when you got to Crescent Valley?
Russell, I knew my role as a goal scorer, but I hate to throw like the refs or the scorekeepers under the bus. I had assists, I just wasn't getting them. And I know I got a hard time for that. I was leading the team in goals, but was tied for dead last in assists with the goaltenders. And so I got off to a great start, and then got traded out of the blue to Creston. And initially, I wasn't going to report. I'm like, screw this, I'm going back home. Like, I was devastated. I had a good thing going in Beaver Valley, Fruitvale, which is near the Ferraro's hometown. And the head coach, Shane Luckenchuk, after the trade, he heard I wasn't going to come, and he just wanted to take one last crack at getting me there. And then said some great things and where I was going to be in the lineup. And then eventually thought, you know what, let's give this a crack. And I'm really glad I did, or else I would have regretted that the rest of my life. Because I wouldn't have played in a game 7, Russell, in
Yeah,
triple
no
overtime.
triple overtime.
So, yes, I remember my first playoff game in the opening round. I had 3 assists, and I got credit for 0. And they were primary helpers. They were obvious assists. And so I did something I never did. It was after a win. I didn't want to be that guy. But I went in the coach's office. I'm like, Shane, you know it. I had 3 assists. Like, I'm leading the league in assists right now. It's game 1 of the playoffs. He goes, I got your back. I already made the edits. You're good to go. And then I went home. He only gave me credit for 2. So it is what it is. But I definitely was making some plays, but I've always just been a goal scorer.
Yeah, fair enough. So just going back to your fandom, the one thing I like to ask people is if there's a player for one of your hated rivals that you always wanted to see in a Canucks jersey.
Milan Hajduk jumps off the list.
Mhm.
The Canuck killer himself for the Colorado Avalanche. It seemed like he always scored against Vancouver when they went head to head. So he is one. Patrice Bergeron's my favorite player of all time,
Mhm.
besides Bure. I know that sucks for Canucks fans to hear, and I wish he played for any other team but Boston. He is not a typical Boston Bruin. He's a really classy guy, plays the game the right way. That's what I like about him. And Brad Marchand as well. I know Canucks fans don't like hearing that name. Maybe they do now because he plays for Florida. But I got a chance to be around Brad for about a month in when he's playing for Providence, so before his glow up,
Mm.
because my buddy was playing with him, and we stayed at his place for a month, and so we hung out with Brad a lot. Didn't know he would turn into what he is now. He was just like a young guy at the time, scratching the surface. He was a go-to player on the Providence Bruins at the time, and then when he got called up to Boston, people forget like he wasn't very good. He didn't get his first point until like 30 games in or something like that. And so it looked like he might just be a fourth line grinder, and now here he is, probably a Hall of Famer. So I'll always back Brad, unfortunately, to the chagrin of Canucks fans.
Yeah, that's fair. They both play for Canada anyway, so as Canucks fans, we can
Exactly.
always just picture them with a red maple leaf on their chests. So let's talk a little bit about the resume. I mentioned a little bit off the top, but can you give me kind of an idea about how you got into hockey broadcasting and where you got how that all led up to the Abbotsford Canucks?
Yeah, so growing up, I remember late stage of the middle school. After grade 8, you'd go into high school, and I remember meeting with like a counselor. They wanted to figure out what you want to do with your life and try to figure things out early on in your high school days, so you're not scrambling in grade 11 and 12 to figure out what you want to be. And I knew right then and there I wanted to be a broadcaster. Jim Robson is a big reason as to why I wanted to get into broadcasting. I remember obviously the 1994 run, but when I couldn't watch the games on TV because they weren't as accessible in the early 90s,
Mhm.
games weren't on every night. We had a built-in radio intercom in our kitchen, and I would just sit right next to it and listen to Jim and Tom Larscheid call Canucks games. So I was always fascinated with Jim Robson. Side note, I had a chance to chat with him for about an hour during the Abbey Canucks playoff run, which was really cool.
Mhm.
Still can't believe that happened. And so in grade 8, I said I want to be a commentator, and we looked at courses that I would need to take in high school if I needed like a certain English class or whatnot. And so did that, and met with counselors throughout high school to still make sure what I wanted to do. And I said, yeah, I'm going to be a hockey commentator. And then eventually got playing junior with Beaver Valley and then Creston Valley.
Mhm.
And I was 18 at the time. And after our tough sweep in the second round, I figured I was going to come back. Like, if not, go a higher level of junior A. My dad was a scout for the Langley Chiefs and
Oh.
would probably get an invite there to main camp and have a good crack at making the team. And so I know he really wanted me to do that. And then I remember when he picked me up after locker clean out, we were driving through the mountains, and I remember clear as day just thinking like, I don't think I'm gonna make the NHL. Why don't I just get into broadcasting now? We had a friend in broadcasting that went to BCIT,
Mhm.
didn't like it, and then went to Columbia Academy and really liked it
Mhm.
because I always thought I was going to go to BCIT. It's a very good program and still is. But this family friend really raved about what Columbia Academy did. It was very hands-on,
Mhm.
a shorter program. There's a sports broadcasting element to it where you can get some hands-on experience. And so I hung up the skates and went to school at Columbia Academy. It was probably tailored more to like an on-air radio host,
Mhm.
which I didn't know at first, which was fine. I'm like, maybe I get into this. Maybe I try something else because I enjoy doing it. But then the sports broadcasting course came about, and I had a chance to call some games at the junior B level in lacrosse,
Mhm.
senior B, sorry. So it was like boxing.
Mhm.
The guys are very talented, but it was a great opportunity for me to cut my teeth and at least call some games. And I would love to get my hands on the footage of that because I probably sounded terrible. And so was thankful enough to do a season of lacrosse through my program with the Coquille Madnax. And then when I was ready to do my exam, I didn't know where I was going. I was very frustrated. I had some classmates like moving out of town to get jobs. I couldn't get anything. Obviously, was focused on like hockey jobs. And like I mentioned, my dad was a scout with the Langley Chiefs. And when I wrote my final exam, I came out the door, and my dad said, Jared Harmon, who was the play-by-play guy for the Langley Chiefs at the time, he wants to talk to you about coming in for an interview. I was like, that's awesome. And so Jared was going to transition from the broadcast booth to more of like the marketing side.
Mm.
I ended up getting a job with the Langley Chiefs, which was great. And thought I was going to play for them. Ended up calling their games, which was kind of weird because I remember seeing some of the talent on there, and I knew I was better than them. And thought like, should I just put this career on hold and just help them out in the second half of the season? But I stuck with it, and eventually the Langley Chiefs got bought by the Henderson family, Roy and John, and they rebranded the team and called them the Langley Rivermen, which they are now in the
Mhm.
BCHL. And the team moved from George Preston Arena to the Langley Event Center, which was brand new at the time. And so they didn't keep a lot of people on except me and the mascot. And so I was very thankful that they kept me on board and worked 3 years for them before getting an opportunity at the Abbotsford Heat.
Mhm.
And so getting at the pro level at a very young age was an eye opener. It was very fun. Unfortunately, it only lasted a year before the team moved to Glens Falls, New York. So a lot of people like myself were out on our rear ends
Mhm.
trying to find the next role. And I struggled to get a hockey job, that's for sure. And at one point, I had to pivot into lacrosse. I latched on with the Vancouver Stealth, who were
Mhm.
also playing at the Langley Event Center at the time. Called their away games. I did the New West Salmon Bellies and WLA in the summertime, and so really like doing lacrosse. It's a great sport. Had some buddies that played it, and then eventually the Stealth got bought by the Aquilinis
Mhm.
and called it the Vancouver Warriors, which is the team right now. Moved them down to Rogers Arena. Was lucky enough to stay on with them and call games out of the Jim Robson broadcast gondola. So that was really cool. I did that for a few years, and then the opportunity came about with the Abbotsford Canucks, and I ended up getting the job halfway through year number one, and here I am, just finishing year four. So a long-winded answer there.
Uh,
Sorry, Russell.
Oh, it's all good. That's why we bring you on. I think we're all just happy that you decided to hang up the skates and start calling games because this last little run was an amazing one. But before we get too much into the Abbey Canucks Calder Cup win, I wanted to ask you what like a day-to-day routine looks like for you on a game day.
Yeah, so let's say there's a game on a Friday. I like to prepare on the Monday and start getting into the weeds on the players of the opposition, getting to know them and their stories. The best thing about working AHL, Russell, is that every single player in the league has a different path to get to where they are
Mhm.
in the American Hockey League. So I like to share those stories, and some people don't like me talking about the visitors that often, but I'm still going to do it because at the end of the day, telling these personal stories and the trials and tribulations that these players have gone through deserve to be told. And obviously, I'll tell the stories of the Abbotsford Canucks players as well. And so, a lot of my time early in the week is dedicated to updating stats on the Abbotsford side, digging into the opposition, trends that are happening with the teams. Usually, yeah, Monday I take care of like the individual players. Tuesday I'll get into how the teams are doing in the last few weeks and players that are on an upwards trend, players that are maybe looking to pick it up, and transactions, who's gone up, who's
Mhm.
gone down. And then I got some prep to do for a game preview that goes up on the Jumbotron and in social media. So figuring out what to ask Manny Mahaltra for that segment and trying to find an angle of what I can tell the fans about the matchup coming up. And then usually by game day, I hope to be mostly done. I'll never say I'm done ever. If I do, I want people to call me on it. There's always something you can do before puck drop, but I get all the stressful stuff out of the way Monday to Thursday, and then just tidy up on Friday morning
Mhm.
before heading to the rink Friday afternoon. So I pretty much like to be close to done Thursday night. So that's kind of the plan of attack right now when I'm preparing for a game.
Do you have like a routine of going through like your calls or anything like that? Do you listen back to games and kind of try and improve, or what do you do to continue to try and get better?
Yeah, I know this will sound bad, but I don't listen back to games. I used to early on, but now this is my 17th year calling games. And I know when I'm screwing up, I'll make a mental note or even write it down so it can be better the next time. And I know if I say something cool, I'm like, okay, I'm going to use that again. I've never said that word in my life. I don't know why I said it. It rolled off the tongue. I'm going to keep it going and add it to the repertoire. So obviously, like with social media nowadays, Russell, you know it, there's clips out there. I'll be scrolling through Instagram on Twitter, and I'll hear my voice, which always will never feel like normal. All of a sudden, I hear my voice. I'm just like, oh boy. Sometimes I just keep scrolling. Sometimes if it's a great goal or feel like it's a good call, I'll play it. I'll obviously get some clips sent to me from friends and family if they think it's a funny or a good call. And stuff like that. But I do not go back and listen from like the opening face-off to the end of the game. I kind of use that time to prepare for the next game.
So one thing I always like to ask people who are in and around the game, especially at the level that you're at, calling professional hockey games, do you have like a welcome to the NHL, AHL moment? Because a lot of players will talk about, oh, I lined up at a face-off with Sidney Crosby, or I got body checked by Scott Stevens or whatever. So do you have a moment like that as a play-by-play guy where you're just like, oh, this is different?
Welcome to the AHL moment. So I started in 2013 with the Abbotsford Heat. A cool story. As you know, the Canucks had the prospect showcase in Penticton,
Mm-hmm.
and I recently got hired by the Calgary Flames to do play-by-play for the Abbotsford Heat, and the Flames are taking part in that tournament. So one of my welcome to Abbotsford Heat fans was to go up there and cover it and put out some stories about potential players who could be on the Abbotsford Heat in the upcoming year and all that. And the Calgary Flames management took me out to dinner in Penticton, and was around like the likes of Brian Burke and Craig Conroy. So it was cool being around those types and just getting to know them. And Conroy at the time was just like a special assistant. He wasn't the GM of the Flames like he is
Yeah.
now. And he has not changed. He is one of the best people you'll ever meet in hockey. He'll remember your name. He'll pick your brain, ask you about the family. So I'll never forget that about Craig Conroy. And then the first game, this is kind of random, but I'll never forget it. My first game was in Lake Erie, so in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
It was Abbotsford against the Lake Erie Monsters, and it was at Quicken Loans Arena where the Cleveland Cavaliers played. And we roll up for the game, and there's like this very fancy car. I think it was like a Lambo in the players' parking area. And the security guard told me that's LeBron James's car. He's working out in the facility right now. And I'm just like, what? My first ever game, LeBron's going to be in the building. Let's go. And
Yeah.
so I remember walking to get up to my broadcast booth, and I really took my time going through the Cavaliers space just to see if he'd pop out. He never would, but LeBron was in the same building as my first professional hockey game. So that was pretty cool. And just a quick one, like a welcome to the Abbotsford Canucks moment. I remember early on the season, I was going to get an interview with Jeremy Colleton, who was the head coach at the time. It was about 4 hours before the game. I went to go knock on the door in his office, and it looked like he was by himself. And so I'm like, okay, hey, Jeremy, you free for a few minutes? But then he started talking to someone in the corner, which I didn't see. And I look over and it's one of the Sedins. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I didn't know you guys were busy. I'll come right back. And I just kind of ran out of there.
Yeah.
And I didn't like introduce myself or anything, but that was really cool to just see one of the seniors. I don't know which one, just hanging out on Jeremy's couch. And then Jeremy walks out. I'm like, I'm so sorry, man, but like, does that happen all the time? And he's like, yeah, they're here every day. I'm like, wow, that is pretty cool. So that was kind of my welcome to Abbotsford moment.
I had Dave Hall on the show last week from Canucks Army, and he mentioned his welcome to the NHL moment was Penticton, actually, this last season up at the tournament. And he said his moment was suddenly he's waiting to interview Manny Mahaltra, and he saw the Sedins and gave him a head nod. And I asked him this, and I'll ask you the same question. Can you tell the Sedins apart now?
I think I can. There is one of the Sedins that does the hair a little bit different, if you will. And so I was told that's how you should maybe look for, so you don't get them confused. And I feel like I have it down, but I wouldn't say at 100% hit rate right now.
That's fair enough. Identical twins, right? Like there's a whole
Yeah,
thing, right? All right.
absolutely. They're always at the rink, though. It's really cool.
That's good. Yeah, and I think as Canucks fans, we're loving to see that because having them as Hall of Famers in this organization now, being part of bringing up these new guys is been awesome, and you've seen that. The Calder Cup, huge victory, obviously a magical run and probably a great run for you to be on and call. But can you tell me, what does that Calder Cup victory mean to the Canucks as an organization?
It definitely means a lot. Winning that trophy, it's the same deal as the Stanley Cup. You got to get 16 wins. It is not easy, especially in the American Hockey League. The travel is harder. And for Abbotsford's case, they had to play an extra round than most teams that they played against from the second round on. Abbotsford was the only 2 seed in the entire playoffs that had to play in the opening round. The others got buys into the second. And that opening round against Tucson was a hard one, but I think it set themselves up to believe that they can get the job done because they went the distance. It was a short best of 3, and if they lost, there was no Calder Cup. It would have been over, and everybody would have went on with their summer. And at the end of the day, Russell, I would have called it a successful year just due to the development that we saw. happened in Abbotsford, and seeing all the players get some time up with Vancouver and doing well. That's what it's all about. So I would have jumped on any interview and said like this was the best year ever. And then all of a sudden they win 4 more rounds and get a Calder Cup for the first time in franchise history. And it was just so cool to see Canucks Nation rally around the Abbotsford Canucks. Obviously, we all would have loved it to be Vancouver and them getting deep in the playoffs. There's just nothing like it. But to the Canucks fans' credit, they're like, why don't we support this Abbotsford team? There's some great players on it, some good stories. They're easy to get behind. And that's exactly what happened. It seemed like as each home game went along, there was more people in the building. It was louder. And then it got to a fever pitch when the Western Conference Final started against Texas. I mean, I still get chills thinking about the pregame scene with the videos happening on the jumbotron and the fans swinging around the towels. Really reminded me of what happens down at Rogers Arena in the spring. So, and now getting a chance to say that you're a Calder Cup champion is something that you'll have forever. I mean, the Canucks are going to go into next season with a target on their back, and I think the players that will return are looking forward to that because it's a team that went through a lot. Like every HL team, there's highs and lows. You lose a bunch of guys throughout the year, and at the end of the day, the team that shows the most resilience is going to win out. And the Canucks definitely showed that resilience, especially in the playoffs. Manny Mahaltra mentioned that word a ton, and to see them hoist that cup after Game 6 against a very good Charlotte team, I mean, it was just so rewarding to see the players smiling and laughing and acting like children. It was just one of the best things ever.
Something I didn't put on the list of questions I wanted to ask you, but it's kind of funny how the year ended up going because you had probably one of the worst locker room situations that I've heard of in my entire fandom of watching Canucks with the whole Vancouver Canucks locker drama. And then you got the Abbotsford Canucks, which is their affiliate, which seemed like they had like a group of guys who loved each other. Was that just kind of a strange like back and forth between the two locker rooms? Like how can one organization have such a different scene in two different locker rooms?
Not at all, Russell. The players, to their credit, and the staff just focused on them. They weren't going to talk about what was happening with Vancouver. They were focused on their job. I never asked the players about it. I never asked Manny about it because I knew the answer. It's like what it's out of their control. Like they're to do a job in Abbotsford day after day. Manny Malhotra has them on a certain trajectory. It's all about development, and there's no sense of worrying what's going to happen that you have no control over. So, um, credit to the veterans in that locker room: Chase Waters, Guillaume Brisebois, Sammy Blais, Phil DiGiuseppe. The list goes on and on. Christian Willanen. That leadership group was able to keep the players glued together. Obviously, there was a lot of young guys that were getting acclimated into the American Hockey League, and talk about a bunch of guys that they were able to learn from and try to be a professional and what goes into it on a day to day. So I would say on Abbotsford, they were tucked away out there and just worrying about their own game.
I always have a co-host with me on game days. We broadcast actually during every single Vancouver Canucks game, and then we ended up picking up the Abbey Canucks once they got into the playoffs. But my co-host name is Dustin Boydell, so I asked him if he had a question for you today, and the question he wanted to ask you was there a point in the season when you thought it was going to be something special?
Well, they had two lengthy win streaks after the new year. They rattled off 8 games in a row in January after they were struggling and below 500. And I'm sure at that point, like if you ask the players in the locker room and fans, like, where can this team go? Expectations probably wouldn't have been too high. But then they go on that 8 game winning streak and really instilled some belief in them.
Mm.
And then in March, they go on a 13 game winning streak. So from January up until the end of the playoffs in Game 6 in Charlotte, the Canucks were without a doubt the best team on a consistent basis. Now I know Charlotte swept two very good teams in Hershey and Laval to get to the final, so full credit to them. They were awesome all year as well. And they finished just a couple points ahead of the Canucks in the standings. And so putting them aside, the Canucks were awesome from the middle of January on. And especially in March, like you saw them playing a different way. They were really buying into the system that Manny and his staff have been preaching all season long. Did they go through some lows in the season? Absolutely. I remember there's a tough stretch, and the players will even tell you about a tough loss in Laval. There's a closed door players meeting to try to get the season back on track, and whatever was said in there definitely worked because they were able to rally after that. And I really can say that it was a selfless effort. in this day and age, Russell, it's all about putting up points. And to get to the NHL, you got to do that. Like if you put up points, you're going to get noticed and maybe get called up. And so the Canucks from like January on weren't worried about that. It was all about team success, and it just parlayed into a long playoff run. So I would say from definitely March on, there was some belief that the Canucks could do some damage in the playoffs.
My last question about the Calder Cup run was, how late did you guys stay out after the victory down there at Bojangles, and did you get the opportunity to drink out of the cup?
It was a late night for sure, and rightfully so. After you win a trophy like that, from a team's perspective, players and staff, I mean, you got to celebrate. You're drinking out of a blue cup. There was a lot of celebrations out of a red cup, as you know. And yeah, it was just first class. The Canucks did a great job of making sure the players were able to celebrate together. And obviously, it would have been great to win it at home. I mean, Max Sasson hit a post in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
If that goes an inch more to the right, it's probably posted in. And the Canucks are winning the Calder Cup on home ice. And that would have been crazy. But it was also really unique, Russell, to win it on the road because it's just the team out there, right? Yeah, there were some family members that made the trip. Victor Mancini had his family there, Tristan Nielsen's dad, Max Sasson's dad, Alan, he was there. So it was cool to see them get a chance to celebrate with their boys.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, it was just like the team and staff hanging out the entire night. It went on very late from the locker room. And then all of a sudden, Bojangles had this neat attachment where there was like this huge space for like meetings and banquets. And so we went into a banquet hall that was fully catered, a full buffet, had a bartender, a private DJ. And so we danced the night away for a few hours there. And eventually we had to leave Bojangles Arena. And then everybody jumped on the bus and then got back to the hotel. It was about a 10-minute drive, and obviously a lot of people excited. Not a bunch were sitting, they're standing, celebrating, singing. And something I'll never forget is like just before we got to the hotel, I don't know who did it or who was behind it, but all of a sudden over the speakers was my final call with the buzzer sounding, and like seeing the players react and just like everybody hearing it for the first time was the first time I heard it. And it was just the reaction. It was almost like I hit a walk-off home run, you know, when you jump on the plate and like everybody's jumping on your head. That was what some of the players were doing. It was really neat to kind of experience that with them, and then jumped off the bus. And we were lucky to have a restaurant and bar stay open late for us, so we were chopping up there. The Calder Cup was in attendance, obviously, and you asked if I got a chance to drink out of the cup, and fortunately, I did.
Yep.
And I have Max Sasson to thank for that. I was near the locker room. The cup was going around. Everybody was getting their turn, sipping some liquid out of it. Let's call it that, champagne and beers. And it went to some of the staff members. And I was just kind of hanging out in the background. And I could kind of hear Max Sasson trying to get Chase Waters' attention, saying like, "Hey, Astle, Astle, Astle." And then Chase is like, "Oh yeah, let's do it." And the next thing you know, they call my name into the middle of the circle. And I just did this. I just let them dump it all over me. I don't think any went in my mouth. And there's some video of that out there that I hope to get someday, because it was neat to get a minor taste of the champagne, but it was just a gesture that I really appreciated from Max.
That's very cool. So what I got the one question for you for next season. Do we know what the status is of Manny Mahaltra's contract? Will he be back? Because I think it was you on the Donnie and Dolly show talking about the fact that Manny Mahaltra had a 1-year option for next year. So do we know the status of his contract with the Abbey Canucks, or do you know if he's going to be back coaching in Abbey next year?
As far as I know, his entire staff will be back, which is great. I heard Ryan Johnson say that in one of his postseason interviews, and that is great news to have Manny come back with his staff. And another thing to keep in mind, Russell, like there were a lot of new people that entered the organization and pro hockey for the first time ever in their careers. So you had Manny coaching for the first time in the pros. His assistants, Harry Mahesh, that was his first time behind a pro bench. It was Jordan Smith's first year with the Abbotsford Canucks. He ran the D. Andrew Shaw, he came from the Chilliwack Chiefs and is the video coach of the Abbotsford Canucks. That was his first year working the pros. Justin Pogge was like a consultant with a couple of teams, a goaltending consultant, but he's never actually been like a full-on goaltending coach. So that was his first experience working for a pro hockey team as like a full-time goaltending coach. They had 2 new trainers come in. So there's just been a total overhaul. The only familiar faces were the 2 equipment managers, Shingo and Chico have been here since day one. John Murray, the strength coach, has been here as well, and the doctor David Melichuk, and he has some staff members that work with him that's been around a little bit. So a lot of new people in an organization, and sometimes that can go sideways. But instead, they all rallied together, and it was just perfect hires from Ryan Johnson, and led to a Calder Cup, which was really cool.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much, Brandon, for taking the time out of your day. And I enjoyed the interview, and I would love to have you on again sometime in the future. So keep up the good work, and thanks for all the time today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure coming on here, and we'll definitely look forward to doing this again. Thanks, Russell.
Nothing is perfect.